Hello family, enjoy this relaxing moment with Charm Stories. Remember to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section. Also generously hit the like button cause it means the world to us. Please sit back, relax and enjoy as we dive into the story. Olivia Bennet had never imagined she would one day cross paths with someone like Adrian Steele. Growing up in a modest two-bedroom house on the outskirts of Chicago, she learned the value of hard work from her parents, who ran a tiny accounting firm. Olivia spent her teenage years balancing homework with helping her mother file tax returns and her father manage office supplies. The family struggled to make ends meet, yet they always believed in Olivia's potential. Her keen mind and natural curiosity about business set her apart from her classmates, giving her dreams that far exceeded her small-town origins. At 21, she enrolled in a prestigious university's business program, determined to chart her own path. In her sophomore year, she was invited to a special networking event for aspiring entrepreneurs. It was there that she first locked eyes with Adrian Steele, a charismatic final-year student who was already making waves. Tall, with a confident smile and an uncanny ability to command attention, Adrian was the type of man who seemed destined for greatness. He ran a student startup that sold customizable gadgets, phone cases, laptop skins, and other trendy items that catered to the campus crowd. While others were intrigued by his confidence, Olivia was drawn to the passion in his voice. Standing at a side table, sipping a soda, Olivia listened as Adrian delivered a short speech about turning every obstacle into an opportunity. The excitement in his tone was infectious, and when their eyes met, he paused for a moment, offering her a subtle nod and a quick, inviting grin. Her heart fluttered, and she found herself smiling back, though she tried to play it cool by looking away. Later that evening, as Olivia stood waiting for a friend by the auditorium's exit, Adrian approached. "That was quite a talk you gave earlier about brand positioning," he said, his voice low and confident. "Mind if I walk you out?" Olivia, startled by the sudden approach, felt her cheeks warm. "Oh, sure. I'm just waiting for a friend, but she seems to have gone off somewhere." "Then let me keep you company," Adrian offered. They stepped out into the crisp night air, where the lampposts illuminated the campus pathways. They talked about everything: marketing strategies, dreams of starting a company that would revolutionize technology, and the challenges of balancing school with ambition. By the time they reached the dormitory gates, they had forged an undeniable connection, one that would seal their fates. It didn't matter that Olivia came from a humbler background. Adrian was more captivated by her intellect than any flashy social status. And as they parted ways, promising to meet soon, she felt an unfamiliar spark of hope in her chest. Their first meeting was a fairy tale moment. Two ambitious souls at the dawn of adulthood. If Olivia had only known how significant this stranger would become in her life, she might have paused to brace herself. But under the glow of the moon and the buzz of campus life, all she felt was the sweet thrill of possibility. Over the weeks that followed, Olivia and Adrian formed a bond that went deeper than typical college relationships. They studied together, brainstorming business ideas and dissecting case studies from their classes. Adrian marveled at how easily Olivia grasped complex financial models, while she admired his knack for captivating any audience with his presentations. They became each other's strongest supporters, complementing each other's strengths. One chilly evening at a local cafe, Adrian confided, "Sometimes I feel like I'm not cut out for this. My family's expectations are sky high. My father runs a venture capital firm, and I'm supposed to follow in his footsteps. But there are times I'm scared I won't live up to the Steele name." Olivia reached across the table and gently squeezed his hand. "You will. You have a vision, Adrian. And if there's anyone who can make it real, it's you. Remember, obstacles are just opportunities in disguise, right?" She gave him a playful wink. They often stayed up late, mapping out business strategies on Olivia's small whiteboard. She'd stand by the board, scribbling charts and graphs, while he paced the room, generating new ideas. Their synergy was electric. Adrian would propose a concept, and Olivia would refine it, adding practical details like cost projections and timelines. It was clear they were stronger as a team than as individuals. When Adrian decided to turn his campus startup into a legitimate company after graduation, he persuaded Olivia to join him full-time. She had received a highly coveted job offer at a major consulting firm, an opportunity that would have provided financial stability and a well-defined career path. But she turned it down without hesitation. If Adrian was going to risk everything to build Steel Tech, she would risk everything to help him succeed. He noticed the weight of her decision. "I know how much that job meant to you," he said softly one night, pulling her into a warm embrace. "I promise you won't regret this." She looked up at him, her eyes shining with love. "The only thing I'd regret is not believing in us." And so, the two ambitious graduates embarked on a journey of entrepreneurship together, forging a partnership rooted in mutual respect and an all-consuming love. With each late-night work session, each triumph over a new hurdle, their bond grew stronger. Little did they know that success would test their relationship in ways they could never imagine. Steel Tech was born in a cramped, makeshift office on the outskirts of the city. The paint on the walls was chipped, the furniture was mismatched, and the lone window overlooked a dilapidated parking lot. Yet, for Adrian and Olivia, that tiny office was a castle of dreams. They poured every ounce of energy into building a brand that resonated with tech enthusiasts. Olivia set up the finances and handled the behind-the-scenes work, budgeting, marketing, and supplier relations, while Adrian dazzled potential investors and clients with his charismatic pitches. Their days started at dawn with coffee-fueled meetings and ended well past midnight, often with Olivia asleep at her desk. She meticulously tracked every penny spent and earned. It was her watchful eye on the numbers that kept Steel Tech afloat in those early months. Adrian's father, initially skeptical, eventually invested a modest sum after seeing their progress. More investors followed, convinced by the company's steady growth and innovative concepts. Soon, Steel Tech was no longer a fledgling startup. They moved into a sleek high-rise office downtown. Interview requests from tech blogs started flooding in. The press hailed Adrian as the visionary CEO, while Olivia remained in the background, a ghostwriter for his success. She didn't mind. The thrill of watching their dream come to life was enough. A year after Steel Tech's official launch, Adrian proposed to Olivia in front of a small group of family and close friends. He knelt in the middle of their new office space, ring in hand, amid a sea of newly delivered desks and chairs. "We've built a life together, let's make it forever," he said, voice shaking with emotion. Tears welled in her eyes as she said yes. Their wedding was a modest yet heartfelt affair at a picturesque garden. The business world took note of the power couple whose love seemed as unbreakable as their partnership. For a while, it truly felt perfect. They tackled every problem as a team, with Olivia's calm pragmatism and Adrian's infectious energy forming the bedrock of Steel Tech. Their marriage was strong, and their ambitions were even stronger. Neither of them suspected that the very success they had fought so hard for would sow the first seeds of turmoil. As Steel Tech skyrocketed, so did Adrian's public profile. No longer just an ambitious entrepreneur, he became a sought-after speaker and socialite. Invitations to glamorous parties and high-end galas piled up on his desk. Olivia tried to keep pace, but she was more comfortable analyzing market trends than mingling under bright lights and flashing cameras. At first, Adrian coaxed her into attending these events. "It'll be good for Steel Tech if they see both of us," he insisted. Olivia attempted to adapt, wearing designer dresses she could barely afford and practicing small talk about stock prices and company expansions with strangers over champagne flutes. But the more Adrian shone in those gatherings, the more she felt overshadowed. People flocked to him while she hovered near the edges of the room, smiling politely and counting down the minutes until they could leave. Over time, Adrian began attending events without her. "It's all business," he'd say. "You know how draining these things can be, Liv." She accepted his explanations, relieved she could focus on real work instead of awkward cocktail conversations. But then photos started circulating online. Pictures of Adrian with influential personalities, models draped on his arm, socialites laughing at his jokes, and night after night of lavish parties. Olivia's heart sank. She tried to brush aside her insecurities, reminding herself that these were professional connections. However, it wasn't just the photos. Adrian's demeanor changed at home. He came back in the early hours, half drunk, trailing the scent of expensive perfume. He stopped asking about her day or her ideas for new projects. Instead, he spoke incessantly of the next big deal, the next event, the next influencer endorsement. Conversations about future strategies, once the cornerstone of their bond, grew rarer. One evening, as she placed a reheated meal on the table, Adrian barely looked up from his phone. "We need to hire a new marketing executive," he muttered. "Someone with a fresh, youthful approach. The board wants a rebrand, something edgier." Olivia forced a smile, although a pang of unease tugged at her. "Sounds like a plan. I can help vet resumes." "Sure," Adrian responded dismissively, eyes still glued to his phone. "We'll see who we can find." Olivia turned away, hiding the sadness pooling in her eyes. She told herself it was just a phase. Rapid success could rattle anyone, right? She desperately clung to the idea that once the business stabilized, things would return to normal. Little did she know, they were only beginning to fall apart. A few weeks after Adrian's casual remark about hiring a new marketing executive, Vanessa Cole walked into Steel Tech. Tall, striking, and brimming with confidence, she was nothing like the average candidate. Vanessa was only 25 but had already made a name for herself running viral campaigns for luxury brands. She had a flair for drama and knew exactly how to turn heads, both in and out of the office. Olivia sat in on the interviews, quietly assessing each candidate's background and experience. When it came Vanessa's turn, the room practically buzzed with her energy. She presented bold marketing ideas that centered on flashy ads, influencer partnerships, and attention-grabbing social media stunts. Adrian was enthralled, nodding enthusiastically at every sentence. "You understand what this company needs," he said, practically beaming at her. "We've been looking for someone who can help us break through to a younger demographic, and your track record is exactly what we need." Olivia couldn't deny Vanessa's charisma or her credentials. Even so, a strange feeling pooled in her stomach. Something about the way Adrian's eyes lingered on Vanessa's figure made Olivia's cheeks heat in silent apprehension. After the interview, Olivia pulled him aside. "She's talented," she admitted, "but I'm a bit concerned. Her methods might be too showy." Steel Tech has always been about substance. Adrian shrugged. "We need someone who can make noise in a saturated market. She's perfect. Trust me on this." Despite her reservations, Olivia went along. Vanessa was hired and wasted no time cementing her place within Steel Tech. She organized high-profile photo shoots and orchestrated partnerships that put the company on the social media map. Adrian praised her endlessly, flaunting her successes at meetings and in investor updates. Soon, rumors started circulating, whispers of their constant working lunches, inside jokes, and how Vanessa's office was conveniently right next to Adrian's. One evening, Olivia caught them laughing over a private joke in the corridor. Adrian was leaning in close to Vanessa, an intimacy in his posture that he had not shown to Olivia in months. Olivia tried to push back the jealous knot in her chest. "Don't read too much into it," she told herself. "This is just business." But with each passing day, Vanessa seemed to be taking up more space, not just in Adrian's professional life, but in his personal world as well. And Olivia felt her sense of security slip away, like sand through her fingers. It was late on a Friday night when Olivia discovered the truth she had dreaded. Adrian had left the office phone behind while rushing to a conference. As she gathered up some files to drop off at his car, the device buzzed with an incoming message. On the screen flashed Vanessa's name, accompanied by a heart emoji. Olivia's pulse quickened. She shouldn't look. She knew it. But her instincts screamed otherwise. The last few months had been filled with suspicion and fear, and she couldn't go on pretending everything was fine. With trembling hands, she unlocked the phone. The text read, "I miss you already. Last night was unforgettable." Heart-pounding, Olivia scrolled through the conversation. Each message was like a stab to the gut. Vanessa and Adrian had been carrying on a blatant affair, plans for romantic dinners, hotel reservations, intimate confessions. The timeline stretched back weeks, possibly even months. Her eyes blurred with tears as she read Vanessa's flirtatious texts and Adrian's excited responses. It was more than a fling. There was a real bond there, brimming with passion and deceit. All those nights Adrian had claimed to be at business dinners suddenly took on a new meaning. Olivia felt nauseous, and her hands began to shake so violently she could barely hold the phone. A wave of disbelief and betrayal washed over her, threatening to drown her in anger and sorrow. When Adrian returned to the office to pick up his files, Olivia confronted him. The moment he walked through the door, she stood there, arms crossed, tears staining her cheeks. "I know about Vanessa," she whispered, voice trembling. He froze, then scoffed. His expression was a mix of annoyance and mild regret, but there was no apology in his eyes. "Fine," he said coldly. "I won't deny it. You've been nothing but a drag, Liv. I need someone with more spark." Her chest constricted, as if the air had been sucked from the room. "You can't be serious. We have a life together. We built this company together." "And now I've moved on," Adrian replied. "Vanessa is my future. You're just my past." He brushed past her without so much as a backward glance. Olivia stood rooted to the spot, phone still clutched in her hand, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, every sacrifice she had made, her job offer, her savings, her dreams, felt like a terrible punchline to a cruel joke she never saw coming. Within days of discovering Adrian's affair, Olivia's world came crashing down. On the morning of their 10th wedding anniversary, a day she had once cherished, Adrian blindsided her with divorce papers. He made no effort to hide his contempt, handing her the documents while sipping his morning coffee. "Sign these," he instructed, tossing a pen onto the table. "I want this done quickly, so I can move on with my life." Olivia stared at the crisp white sheets, her hands trembling. "You can't just end everything like this. We've spent a decade together, Adrian. We built Steel Tech." He cut her off with a glare. "I built Steel Tech," he snarled. "You did some accounting and admin, that's all. I've got Vanessa now, and we're taking this company to a level you can't even dream of." She felt her heart sink. "You know that's not true," she whispered. But her protest fell on deaf ears. Later that afternoon, Olivia was forcibly escorted out of their lavish mansion. She left with only a suitcase containing a few clothes and sentimental items. Standing on the driveway, she watched as Adrian embraced Vanessa in the doorway. Vanessa wore a triumphant smirk, her manicured nails resting possessively on Adrian's arm. In that instant, Olivia felt the last vestiges of her old life shatter. Humiliation and despair threatened to overwhelm her. The tabloids had a field day. "Steel Tech CEO divorces wife for young executive," read the headlines. Even close friends turned a blind eye, choosing to align themselves with the powerful Adrian rather than risk his disfavor by supporting Olivia. That night, she checked into a dingy motel room. The flickering fluorescent light cast harsh shadows on the peeling wallpaper. She collapsed onto the bed, tears streaming down her face. How had everything spiraled so quickly? She recalled the early days, those cramped offices, those hopeful dreams shared over cheap takeout. All of it had led here, to her lying in a shabby motel room with no money, no home, and no clue where to turn next. Adrian had wrested everything away from her in one ruthless move. She wanted to scream, to rage, to demand justice. But all she could do was bury her face in the pillow, letting the tidal wave of anguish wash over her, uncertain if she would ever find the strength to stand again. The next few weeks tested Olivia in every possible way. She used what little savings she had left to rent a modest one-bedroom apartment in a less-than-desirable neighborhood. The building was old and poorly maintained, the elevator rattled alarmingly, and the hallway carpet smelled of stale tobacco. Every time she stepped outside, she feared encountering some tabloid reporter skulking around, hoping to capture a photo of Adrian Steele's discarded wife in her pitiful new life. She spent her days in a haze of depression. Sleep came in fitful snatches, often interrupted by nightmares in which Adrian and Vanessa mocked her, laughing at her ruined state. She stared at the ceiling for hours, replaying every memory of her life with Adrian, trying to pinpoint the exact moment it all started to decay. Was it the first time he brushed off her ideas? The time he canceled a date to meet new investors? Or maybe when he first laid eyes on Vanessa? When she finally dragged herself out to buy groceries, she couldn't avoid the onslaught of social media updates celebrating Adrian's new relationship. Photos of Adrian and Vanessa at posh restaurants, jet-setting to tropical islands, and attending star-studded galas were splashed all over the internet. Olivia would catch glimpses of these images on her phone or while passing by magazine stands. Each new picture stabbed at the raw wound of her betrayal, reminding her of what she'd lost. She tried reaching out to a few old colleagues at SteelTech, hoping to find some empathy or even possible job leads. Most of them answered politely but kept their distance. They all feared Adrian's wrath. Word had spread that supporting Olivia would put their careers in jeopardy. She couldn't blame them. She knew how vindictive Adrian could be. Sitting alone in her cramped apartment one rain-soaked evening, Olivia felt the crushing weight of rock bottom. She was a college graduate with years of experience building a multi-million-dollar business, yet she had no job, no significant savings, and no one in her corner except her best friend, Hannah, who occasionally visited to offer solace. On this particular night, even Hannah's comforting words of support echoed hollowly in the void of Olivia's despair. Never had she felt more powerless. Yet in the darkest hours, a sliver of anger sparked in her chest, quietly flickering beneath the layers of heartbreak and defeat. She recalled the hours she had poured into SteelTech, the ideas she'd birthed, and the deals she'd closed. How could Adrian dismiss her as a mere assistant? She had practically run the show while he paraded around in the spotlight. That spark of indignation threatened to grow into a flame, but she wasn't quite ready to nourish it. Not yet. First, she had to find her footing again, if only to survive. It was Hannah who lit the match that turned Olivia's smoldering resentment into a raging fire. Over takeout Chinese food in Olivia's rundown apartment, Hannah's eyes brimmed with fierce loyalty. "Listen to me, Liv," she said, slamming the white cardboard container on the kitchen table. "You were the real brains behind SteelTech's success. Anyone who's worked there knows it, even if they pretend they don't." Olivia stared down at her steamed rice, stirring it listlessly. "That doesn't matter now. Adrian won, didn't he? He took everything." Hannah snorted. "He only won because you let him. You're not some helpless victim. I remember how you used to stay up late perfecting those pitch decks, negotiating deals, and handling all the operational details while he was off partying." Olivia's grip tightened on her chopsticks, a flicker of pride dawning in her eyes. "But what can I do? Everyone has turned against me. He blacklisted me in the industry. SteelTech is huge. I can't compete with that." Hannah leaned in, her voice unwavering. "You built that empire. You can build another. Start your own company. Use every skill you have. Show Adrian, and the world, that you don't need him to succeed." For a moment, Olivia was silent. Her mind began to churn through the possibilities. She had the knowledge, the experience, and the drive. She also had an undeniable thirst for retribution. Why not channel that anger into something constructive, something that would ultimately cripple Adrian in the arena he valued most, the tech world? She set her rice aside, an uncharacteristic smile tugging at her lips. "Hannah, you're a genius." That night, Olivia hardly slept, but for a different reason than before. Instead of nightmares, her mind was alight with strategies and potential business ideas. She resurrected her old notebooks, the ones brimming with sketches of apps, products, and expansions that Adrian had once dismissed. She scoured the internet for trends and market gaps SteelTech was ignoring. "If Adrian wants a battle," she thought, "I'll give him one he won't forget." By dawn, her whiteboard was filled with scribbles outlining her new plan. The spark that had ignited in her heart flared hotter than ever. She resolved that Adrian Steele would come to regret underestimating Olivia Bennett. The day after her epiphany, Olivia poured her remaining savings into a rickety old laptop, far more modest than the high-end devices she once had access to at SteelTech, and began researching. She trawled through trade publications, tech forums, and financial statements, honing in on every potential weakness in SteelTech's product line. Where was Adrian lagging? Which markets was he ignoring? She realized quickly that SteelTech had become too complacent. Adrian was focused on flashy marketing campaigns, courtesy of Vanessa, while the core technology had stagnated. The brand still sold well, but with no groundbreaking innovations in the pipeline, it was only a matter of time before the competition started to chip away at SteelTech's market share. Olivia, on the other hand, had a clear vision. She wanted to build a lean tech startup that specialized in cloud-based solutions and advanced software integration. Exactly the kind of forward-thinking approach that appealed to modern businesses. She spent days crafting an airtight business plan. She called her new venture Novatech, a name that symbolized a fresh start. Still, the biggest hurdle was funding. With her reputation tarnished, banks were skeptical, and she didn't have the wealthy connections that Darian could tap into with a single phone call. This time, she would have to rely on smaller investors and her own resourcefulness. Undeterred, she set up a crowdfunding campaign, poured her heart into a promotional video explaining Novatech's mission, and unleashed it on social media. She also reached out to a few old acquaintances who secretly admired her work at Steel Tech. One of them, a venture capitalist named Aisha Patel, agreed to a meeting. Aisha, known for her sharp instincts, had always liked Olivia's data-driven approach. Over coffee in a quiet bistro, Olivia pitched her idea. Her voice was steady, her gaze unwavering as she detailed Novatech's potential in the evolving tech landscape. Aisha smiled. "You've got a solid plan, and I've seen what you can do. I'll consider an initial investment, but I need to see some traction first. Build a prototype, and we can talk numbers." Olivia nodded, her heart fluttering with cautious optimism. She left the cafe with renewed determination. She had a foot in the door, and she wasn't about to squander this opportunity. With Novatech's blueprint in her hands, she hurried back to her cramped apartment. The time for pity was over. The time for building her own empire had begun. Novatech quickly became Olivia's all-consuming passion. Working day and night from her modest apartment, she often found herself surrounded by half-eaten sandwiches and endless cups of coffee. Code, diagrams, and notes adorned the walls, turning her living space into a makeshift war room. She had enlisted 2 freelance developers she'd met in online tech forums. Both were brilliant coders who believed in her vision. They worked remotely, communicating via video calls and Slack channels. Every morning, Olivia analyzed Steel Tech's performance indicators, reading up on consumer feedback and examining the board's quarterly reports. Darian was too busy flaunting his status on Instagram to notice the undercurrents of dissatisfaction from customers craving more innovative software. She studied these pain points meticulously and made them her primary targets. In the afternoons, Olivia scoured LinkedIn for potential collaborators, engineers, designers, and data scientists looking for a meaningful project. She was surprised by how many talented people were disgruntled with their corporate gigs and seeking an exciting startup environment. While she couldn't offer high salaries, she promised them the chance to shape the future of tech. This raw enthusiasm was exactly what Novatech needed. Her evenings were spent honing her pitch to investors. She practiced it in front of a mirror, timing each pause, perfecting every statistic. Though she'd once lived in Darian's shadow, she discovered a latent charisma of her own, a quiet confidence fueled by her sincerity and expertise. If she was going to dethrone Steel Tech, she needed all the persuasion skills she could muster. But there was another reason she pushed herself to the brink, the silent, burning desire for revenge. Each time she felt her energy flag, she recalled Darian's sneering words, "You're just my past." That single statement had become a mantra that spurred her forward, ensuring she would leave him in the dust. Despite the financial strain and near-constant exhaustion, Olivia realized she was learning more about the tech industry in a few weeks than she had during her entire decade at Steel Tech. With every challenge overcame, from glitchy prototype builds to forging new investor relationships, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was no longer simply Darian Steele's wife. She was Olivia Bennett, CEO and founder of Novatech. And she was just getting started. Olivia's efforts began to bear fruit in spectacular fashion when a single social media post changed Novatech's trajectory. She had just launched a small-scale marketing campaign on Twitter, showcasing a demo of Nova One, Novatech's cloud-based analytics software. Her new marketing intern, a social media was named Rosa, created a slick, animated video explaining how Nova One could save businesses time and money. By the next morning, Olivia woke to a barrage of notifications on her phone. The video had gone viral, garnering tens of thousands of retweets and likes in just a few hours. Tech journalists and bloggers picked it up, praising Nova One's intuitive design and advanced features. It wasn't just hype. The product truly filled a gap in the market that other giants, including Steel Tech, had neglected. Olivia's email inbox was inundated with inquiries from potential clients. Small businesses, mid-sized companies, and even a couple of Fortune 500 firms curious to learn more. The sudden surge in attention put Novatech on the map almost overnight. Investors, too, took notice. Her phone rang incessantly with venture capitalists asking to set up meetings. One of the calls that morning was from Aisha Patel. "Olivia, I'm thoroughly impressed," the venture capitalist said. "Your product demo hit a sweet spot with the audience. Let's talk about finalizing the investment." Olivia breathed a sigh of relief, her heart pounding with excitement. After so many sleepless nights and lonely struggles, Novatech was emerging as a contender. She quickly arranged a meeting, presenting updated financial forecasts that painted a clear picture of how Novatech could challenge established players by offering a more affordable and user-friendly product. The deal was secured 2 weeks later. With a fresh infusion of capital, Olivia expanded her team, bringing on top-tier engineers and designers who shared her passion and integrity. SteelTech, for the first time, felt the tiniest tremor in its foundation. And if Adrian was paying attention, and she was certain he would soon realize that the woman he had brushed aside was not one to be dismissed. At SteelTech's sprawling corporate headquarters, Adrian sipped his morning espresso while scrolling through industry news on a sleek tablet. His brows furrowed when he noticed a headline on a major tech blog, "Novatech, the rising star taking on industry giants." The accompanying article raved about Nova One's features and praised the leadership of CEO Olivia Bennett. Adrian nearly spilled his coffee. He hadn't expected Olivia to rebound so quickly, much less pose a real threat to SteelTech. Yet here she was, making waves across the tech sphere. His jaw tightened. He called for an emergency meeting with SteelTech's board of directors, determined to brush off Novatech's success as a fluke. "We're still the market leader," he insisted, leaning back in a leather chair. "Our brand recognition and customer base are unmatched. This is a small startup that got lucky with one viral campaign." Some of the board members exchanged skeptical glances. A few even voiced their concerns. "Adrian, the market is evolving. If Novatech continues innovating at this pace, we might lose significant ground." At the corner of the table, Vanessa Cole sat with her arms folded, a faint frown creasing her otherwise flawless makeup. She was not accustomed to seeing Adrian this unsettled. Lately, she had grown more interested in the superficial perks of her position, designer shopping sprees, photo ops at exclusive events, rather than actual corporate strategy. Seeing Adrian rattled made her uneasy. "That Olivia woman is probably still bitter about the divorce," Vanessa said dismissively. "A rebound company. She'll fizzle out soon." Adrian felt a surge of anger. He didn't want to admit it, but he knew Olivia's competence. "Let's just ensure we stay ahead," he said, scanning the room. "Double down on marketing. Release some flashy new updates. We have to remind the public why we're SteelTech." Vanessa forced a dazzling smile in agreement, but deep down, her confidence wavered. She noticed that Adrian had begun to mention Olivia more often, almost obsessively checking news updates about Novatech. Their once glamorous nights out were now overshadowed by tension and frantic strategy sessions. For Vanessa, it was a sobering reminder that her lavish lifestyle was tethered to the success of SteelTech, and if Adrian lost his grip, so might she lose everything she had gained. Novatech's momentum continued to build as Olivia revealed a new strategic move that would catapult the company into the big leagues. Through careful negotiation, she secured an endorsement from a major celebrity known for their tech-savvy presence. Ava Sinclair, a globally recognized pop star who had millions of social media followers. The partnership was a game-changer, with Ava praising Nova One for its cutting-edge design and empowering features for creators and businesses alike. The announcement exploded across every social channel, sending Novatech's website traffic soaring. Investors took immediate notice, and the timing could not have been more perfect. Olivia was in the midst of pitching to a prominent venture capital group, Redwood Investments. The Ava Sinclair endorsement landed like a thunderbolt, reinforcing Novatech's appeal and branding Olivia as a fearless leader unafraid to compete with the industry's biggest names. Within a month, Redwood Investments finalized a multimillion-dollar deal that injected fresh capital into Novatech. Olivia hired more staff, expanded into a slightly larger workspace, and accelerated the development of new product lines aimed at streamlining content creation tools for influencers and small businesses. Meanwhile, Adrian fumed. At SteelTech, product development had stalled, weighed down by bureaucratic delays and an overemphasis on flashy advertising. To To make matters worse, a few key clients were quietly migrating to Novatech, lured by the promise of better customer service and cutting-edge solutions. The cracks in SteelTech's foundation grew wider. One afternoon, while reviewing financial reports, Adrian threw his tablet across the boardroom in a fit of rage. Vanessa, who had been updating him on a proposed influencer campaign, jumped. "We're losing clients to Novatech," he sputtered. "It's just a small percentage," Vanessa tried to reassure him. "We can regain them with a more aggressive ad campaign." Adrian paced the room, his eyes ablaze with fury. "No, you don't understand. Olivia is targeting our weaknesses. She knows exactly where to strike. This isn't some random startup, she's out for blood." Vanessa swallowed, feeling a cold bead of sweat roll down her spine. She had never seen Adrian this unnerved. His arrogance had once been a shield, deflecting any doubts about SteelTech's supremacy. Now, he appeared vulnerable, haunted by the specter of his ex-wife's unlikely rise. The world of technology and business buzzed with anticipation when Olivia was invited to deliver a TED Talk. The topic, building an empire from nothing, was a natural fit for her story, and the invitation alone signaled that Novatech's meteoric rise was more than a passing trend. It was a sign that Olivia Bennett herself had become a thought leader, someone worth listening to on a global stage. Weeks of preparation went into her talk. Late into the night, she practiced in front of a mirror or her teammates, refining each sentence and injecting just the right balance of data and personal narrative. She wasn't used to the limelight. Adrian had been the showman in their former life, but adversity had forced her to evolve. On the day of the conference, she stood backstage wearing a crisp, elegant suit. Her heart pounded. She glanced at the audience through a gap in the curtain, spotting rows upon rows of influential entrepreneurs, tech gurus, and media figures. A year ago, she had been an emotional wreck in a dingy motel room, her life in ruins. Now, she was about to address the world on her own terms. Her name was announced, and the applause that followed was thunderous. Stepping onto the stage, Olivia's hands trembled slightly, but her voice remained steady. She spoke of humble beginnings, of sacrifices and betrayals, and of the unbreakable spirit that had led her to create Novatech. She sprinkled the talk with practical insights on how small startups could outmaneuver larger rivals by focusing on genuine innovation and customer-centric solutions. Midway through her presentation, a large screen flashed images. The early prototypes of Nova 1, the viral social media posts, the diverse team she had assembled, and the newest product line she was preparing to launch. The crowd was enraptured, many nodding in agreement or leaning in as she described how passion and resilience forged the foundation of every successful empire. By the talk's end, the auditorium erupted in a standing ovation. Olivia blinked back tears, overwhelmed by the validation. The media quickly picked up the story, dubbing her the woman who beat SteelTech. Interviews and podcast requests flooded her inbox, and prominent business journals published glowing reviews of her TED Talk. One headline read, "Olivia Bennett, from underestimated partner to tech visionary." Word of her triumph reached Adrian through a barrage of notifications on his phone. He scrolled through article after article, each praising Olivia's accomplishments while subtly hinting at SteelTech's decline under his leadership. For the first time in his life, Adrian felt genuinely threatened. And the realization cut deeper than he could have ever imagined. Faced with Novatech's unstoppable momentum, SteelTech began to unravel at the seams. Key clients, many of whom had once been loyal to Adrian, started to question the value they were getting. SteelTech's products remained flashy but lacked the substance that users now demanded. The board of directors grew restless, pressing Adrian to match Olivia's pace of innovation. However, Adrian was too consumed with controlling the media narrative, refusing to admit that Novatech was winning the hearts of consumers. Meetings that once ended with applause and nods of approval now descended into tense standoffs, with directors demanding an explanation for the hemorrhaging client base. The stress weighed heavily on Adrian, eroding his once unshakable confidence. Vanessa, too, sensed the downturn. Their extravagant outings and red carpet appearances lessened as the finances became more uncertain. She had grown accustomed to a life of luxury, designer gowns, private jets, world-class restaurants. But the sparkle in Adrian's eyes had faded, replaced by obsessive tirades about Olivia. It was always Olivia this, Olivia that, her achievements, her cunning, her relentless drive. Vanessa found it exasperating. She had wanted a partnership of glamour and thrill, not a daily lecture about his ex-wife's accomplishments. One night, Adrian and Vanessa returned home from a dull networking event. The tension simmered between them. Adrian unlocked the front door with a scowl on his face. "I can't believe the board had the nerve to question my decisions," he muttered. "After everything I've done for this company." Vanessa shrugged, slipping off her heels in the hallway. "Perhaps if you spent more time innovating and less time obsessing over what Olivia's doing, we wouldn't be in this mess." Adrian shot her a glare. "Don't you dare lecture me. If it weren't for me, you'd still be a no-name marketing executive." Vanessa's eyes flashed with anger, but she forced a tight smile. She knew better than to escalate a fight with a man whose temper was fraying. Still, the simmering resentment took root. If Adrian fell, she'd lose her meal ticket. She began to quietly reevaluate her future. After all, she had climbed her way up before. She could do it again, with or without him. And so, cracks widened in Adrian's once pristine facade. He could no longer hide behind the veneer of success. With each lost client and every mention of Olivia's victory, his empire slipped further from his grasp. An exclusive tech summit, known for drawing the biggest names in the industry, loomed on the horizon. Adrian had been invited as a keynote speaker months earlier, back when steel tech was still considered a powerhouse. To his dismay, he discovered Olivia had also been invited, this time to participate in a panel discussing emerging companies poised to lead the next decade. As the event date approached, media outlets hyped a potential confrontation between the two ex-spouses. They referred to it as the CEO War, tantalizing audiences with the prospect of drama between the charismatic but faltering Adrian Steele and the newly anointed industry darling, Olivia Bennet. On the day of the summit, black sedans and luxury SUVs lined the entrance to an upscale convention center. Inside, polished marble floors reflected the shoes of high-powered executives, journalists, and tech enthusiasts bustling between rooms. Olivia arrived in a simple yet elegant outfit, hair neatly tied back, projecting an image of calm professionalism. She tried to ignore the cameras that swiveled in her direction, capturing every step. Adrian, conversely, arrived in a sleek tailored suit, chin held high in an attempt to project confidence. But there was a subtle edge to him, a certain tension around his eyes that hinted at his crumbling composure. During the panel, Olivia spoke passionately about the importance of user-centric innovation. She highlighted how Novatech thrived by listening to the market's unmet needs, rather than forcing shiny but empty products. Her words drew appreciative nods and enthusiastic applause. Adrian had the stage next, delivering his keynote. He tried to dazzle the audience with SteelTech's new direction, but the speech lacked substance, and the crowd's energy remained subdued. Whispers circulated about Novatech's influence and how SteelTech was playing catch-up. Backstage, as Olivia stepped down from the panel, she spotted Adrian waiting. He approached, face grim. "You really think you're something, don't you?" he hissed, anger lacing every syllable. She regarded him coolly. "I think I'm a CEO who knows her market." Adrian's jaw clenched. "You won't get away with this forever. SteelTech still holds the lion's share." With a raised eyebrow, Olivia let her voice turn frosty. "Then prove it. Innovate, instead of throwing cheap shots." She pivoted on her heel, leaving Adrian fuming in her wake. The cameras captured every second, fueling a deluge of viral headlines: ex-lovers clash at Tech Summit, and Olivia Bennet outshines Adrian Steele. The world had already begun choosing sides, and it wasn't looking good for Adrian. The fallout from the Tech Summit was swift and merciless for Adrian. SteelTech had been banking on securing a lucrative government contract for an upcoming digital infrastructure project. It was a deal worth millions, something that could have bolstered the company's sagging finances and given Adrian some much-needed positive press. However, unbeknownst to him, Olivia had also submitted a proposal for Novatech. A week after the summit, both companies received their notifications. SteelTech's bid was denied. Novatech's bid was approved. The news sent shockwaves through the industry. The contract win for Novatech was a symbolic victory, signaling that even major institutional clients were losing faith in SteelTech's tired approach. Inside SteelTech's boardroom, The tension was palpable. Adrian drummed his fingers on the polished mahogany table, fury sparking in his eyes. "Who in our R&D department dropped the ball?" he demanded. A middle-aged executive gulped. "Our proposal lacked some critical features the government requested, features Novatech has already integrated." Adrian slammed his fist on the table. "This is unacceptable. Do you realize how catastrophic this is for our reputation?" Meanwhile, at Novatech's newly refurbished office, Olivia received a standing ovation from her team the moment she walked in. They cheered, whistled, and someone even popped a bottle of champagne. The environment was electric, a stark contrast to the tense silence that reigned at Steel Tech. Hannah, who had joined Novatech as a communications specialist, approached Olivia with a wide grin. "You did it. This is huge for us, Liv." Olivia smiled, feeling an almost surreal surge of triumph. "We did it. Couldn't have done it without everyone's hard work." News outlets seized on the story, praising Novatech's rapid ascent and predicting a bleak future for SteelTech unless drastic changes were made. Adrian could do nothing to stop the hemorrhaging. That very afternoon, Vanessa came home early, claiming she needed to clear her head. In truth, she was already scouting new, more reliable prospects behind Adrian's back. She knew this might just be the beginning of a downward spiral for him, and she wasn't eager to go down with the ship. For Adrian, the writing was on the wall. He had expected competition, but not outright humiliation. Each setback was another nail in his corporate coffin, hammered in by the very woman he had once discarded without a second thought. Adrian tried to keep a low profile amid the crisis, but the universe seemed intent on rubbing salt into his wounds. One evening, feeling the need to clear his head, he decided to drive around the city in his high-end sports car, a remnant of his more prosperous days. The deserted roads offered a temporary solace from the turmoil at Steel Tech. He turned a corner onto a bustling commercial street, where neon lights lit up towering skyscrapers. That's when he saw it, a giant billboard perched on top of a building. Olivia's face was plastered across the massive display, smiling confidently with the Novatech logo glimmering beside her. The bold caption read, "The future belongs to the fearless." Adrian felt his heart seize. He brought the car to an abrupt halt, ignoring the blaring horns and angry shouts of other drivers. Bathed in the billboard's fluorescent glow, he stared at the enormous image of the woman he had once belittled. She looked radiant, triumphant, larger than life. It was more than just a billboard. This was a declaration of her success and his failure. Headlights from passing cars illuminated Adrian's tense face as he gripped the steering wheel. A whirlwind of emotions churned within him: rage, regret, envy, and a lingering sense of disbelief. He couldn't hide from Olivia's triumph, even on the streets of a city he once ruled. The next morning, the humiliations continued. He discovered that several mid-level executives at SteelTech had resigned overnight, citing a lack of future prospects. Vanessa, too, acted colder than usual, brushing off his attempts at conversation. She spent more time texting her friends and going out, leaving him to wallow in the silence of their once lively mansion. Alone in his office, Adrian stared at a photo of him and Olivia from their early days, back when she was the pillar supporting his dreams. He felt an unfamiliar tightness in his chest, a pang of regret that he couldn't easily dismiss. For the first time in years, Adrian Steele wondered if he had chosen the wrong path. Desperate and running out of moves, Adrian swallowed his pride and reached out to Olivia. He sent a polite, almost timid text message. "Hey, can we talk? I know things have been rough, but I'd appreciate a moment of your time." It was a far cry from the arrogant tone he'd used in the divorce papers. To his surprise, Olivia agreed to meet. She selected a sleek downtown cafe, neutral territory, brightly lit with minimalist decor. When Adrian walked in, he spotted her at a corner table, poised with a cup of tea. He approached, feeling a knot tighten in his stomach at the sight of her cool, confident demeanor. "Olivia," he began, forcing a smile that felt unnatural. "Thanks for agreeing to see me." She offered a curt nod, gesturing for him to sit. "I'm curious what you could possibly want to talk about." He sat down, fiddling with his cufflinks before speaking in a hushed tone. I've made mistakes. I was arrogant and hurtful. You didn't deserve any of that." Olivia's face remained impassive. Go on. Adrian exhaled slowly. I'm losing everything. SteelTech is in crisis. Investors are pulling out, and the board is close to removing me as CEO. Vanessa. He caught himself, deciding not to mention her by name. I realized people around me only cared about my status. I pushed away the one person who truly believed in me from the start. I need your help. A flicker of satisfaction danced in Olivia's eyes. She had long dreamed of this moment, the day Adrian would understand the weight of his betrayal. However, she also felt a pang of sadness for the man she had once loved. Why come to me? He swallowed hard. Because you know SteelTech better than anyone. You were the brains behind it. Maybe if you join us again, maybe we can salvage what's left. Olivia sipped her tea, letting the silence stretch. Finally, she asked, What do you really want from me, Adrian? Are you asking for forgiveness, or are you asking for a bailout? He looked down, shame burning his cheeks. Both, he admitted, voice quivering. She set her cup down gently. I'll think about it, she said, though her tone was laced with an edge that made his stomach churn. She didn't give him any more time to plead his case. Standing up, she left the cafe without a backward glance, leaving Adrian to stare at the empty chair across from him, his desperation echoing in the hollow space she left behind. A few days after their terse cafe meeting, Adrian mustered the courage to email Olivia a lengthy apology. In it, he admitted to his affair, his arrogance, and his failure to acknowledge her contributions. He claimed he was willing to turn over a new leaf, even suggesting that he step down from his position if it meant securing her partnership again. The tone was contrite, almost groveling, and Adrian she had never seen. Olivia sat in her Novatech office, scanning the email with a critical eye. She felt a tumult of emotions. The anger still smoldered within, yet she also remembered the person she once admired. She decided to meet him again, but this time on her terms. A wave of curiosity compelled her to arrange a meeting in her newly renovated conference room, a setting where she commanded absolute authority. When Adrian arrived, he appeared disheveled, his shirt untucked, dark circles under his eyes. It was a stark contrast to the polished, confident man she had once known. "Olivia," he began, voice cracking slightly, "I'm so sorry. I can't express how." She raised a hand to stop him. "Don't. Let me speak first." She circled the conference table, her heels clicking on the polished floor. "I put my heart and soul into SteelTech, and you belittled me. You cheated. You threw me out with nothing. Now, because I've risen from the ashes, you suddenly realize I was worth more than you ever acknowledged." Adrian cast his gaze down, nodding slowly. "I know I hurt you, but we were unstoppable together once. Can we try again?" For a brief moment, her eyes glistened with old memories. Then she laughed, a short, humorless sound. "Try again? After what you did?" The entire room felt charged, as if the walls themselves disapproved of the very notion. She moved closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "You're not worth my forgiveness." The shock in his eyes was palpable. She watched him crumple into the chair, shoulders slumped. In that instant, she felt a dark satisfaction, but also the final release of something. Adrian had reduced her to tears once. Now, she left him humiliated. Without another word, she turned and strode from the conference room, leaving Adrian in the echo of her fading footsteps. Soon after the disastrous meeting, rumors began circulating in industry circles that SteelTech was on the brink of insolvency. Employees complained about delayed salaries, and more executives handed in their resignations. The board, desperate to salvage the company, put pressure on Adrian to sell his shares or risk total collapse. Unbeknownst to Adrian, Olivia had been quietly scooping up SteelTech stock as the price plummeted. She worked through proxies, ensuring her involvement remained hidden until she had secured a significant chunk. When she felt the moment was right, she made her move. On a crisp Monday morning, news broke that Novatech had acquired a controlling interest in SteelTech. The announcement stunned the tech world. Media outlets scrambled to confirm the details. Olivia Bennett, the former invisible force behind SteelTech, had now gained the power to dictate its future. Shares soared in Novatech, while Steeltech's staff waited in limbo, uncertain what this meant for their jobs. Adrian was in his penthouse apartment when he heard the news. Vanessa was nowhere to be found. She had left the night before, muttering something about needing space. He stared at the TV, which replayed footage of Olivia walking confidently into Steeltech's main lobby, accompanied by her legal team and board members. His phone buzzed relentlessly with calls and texts, all demanding an explanation. Racing to the office, Adrian found the board already assembled in the conference room, with Olivia at the head of the table. The moment he stormed in, the room fell silent. She stood up slowly, meeting his stunned gaze. "Effective immediately, you are relieved of your duties as CEO," Olivia announced, her tone calm but resolute. She slid a folder across the table. "You can review the terms of your severance package. I trust you'll find them fair." Adrian's face contorted with anger, humiliation, and a strange, muted respect. He glanced around the room, seeking an ally, but found none. All the board members were either staring at their phones or looking sheepishly at the table. He turned his gaze back to Olivia. Her expression was unreadable, a perfect mask of corporate efficiency. You took my company," he whispered, voice trembling. Olivia's lips curved into the faintest semblance of a smile. "Correction, I bought the company that once cast me aside." In that moment, Adrian realized how thoroughly he had underestimated her. And for the second time in his life, he was forced to walk away with nothing. News of Olivia's acquisition lit up social media like wildfire. Memes circulated with captions such as, "From ex-wife to boss," and "Olivia Bennett, the ultimate revenge plot." Hashtags trended globally, championing Olivia's ascent as a symbol of perseverance and female empowerment. Interviews poured in from all the major networks, and each time Olivia appeared on camera, she maintained a balanced tone, attributing her success to the dedication of her team and the lessons she'd learned along the way. In a live national broadcast, she stood before a podium, addressing a crowd of reporters. Steeltech was built on a vision that initially brought people together. But somewhere along the line, that vision was lost. "My goal is to restore it, focusing on genuine innovation and ethics." Her voice carried a confident resolve, drawing cheers from employees and spectators alike. Behind closed doors, she met with Steeltech's staff, many of whom were uncertain about their futures. Standing at the center of a large auditorium, she offered reassurance. "If you're loyal, hardworking, and ready to innovate, we'll do incredible things together. No one will be left behind simply because of past leadership decisions." The response was overwhelmingly positive. Applause thundered through the corridors where once there had been only whispers of doubt. It was a stark contrast to how things had been under Adrian's authoritarian rule. Olivia's leadership style, firm yet empathetic, revitalized morale, and employees found themselves eager to contribute to a company that was now front-page news for all the right reasons. Across the city, Adrian nursed his wounds in private. The media's portrayal of him was merciless, a cautionary tale of how arrogance and betrayal lead to downfall. He had gone from being idolized as a brilliant entrepreneur to being scorned as the man who lost his empire to his former wife. And with every new glowing headline about Olivia, he sank deeper into obscurity. For Adrian, life after Steeltech was a bleak landscape. With his finances in disarray, he sold his sports car and listed the mansion on the market, though buyers were scarce. Word had spread of his desperation, driving potential purchasers to offer insultingly low bids. He found himself scraping together the remnants of his once vast wealth, trying to stay afloat. Meanwhile, inside the newly rebranded Steeltech Innovations, a subsidiary now folded under Novatech's umbrella, Olivia set about restoring order. She rehired the employees Adrian had fired for minor disagreements or insufficient loyalty. Skilled engineers and designers returned, grateful for a second chance. With their help, Olivia reorganized the product lines, streamlining the development process and cutting wasteful spending. Profits soared, validating her approach. It didn't take long for Steeltech Innovations to become a billion-dollar entity under Novatech's broader leadership. This synergy of two distinct corporate cultures, a once stagnating giant reinvigorated by a nimble newcomer, became a model case study for business schools worldwide. Yet amid the success, Olivia never forgot what she had endured. She had promised herself that she would never again become invisible, never again sacrifice her own dreams for someone else's. The steel in her spine remained, tempered by the trials of betrayal and heartbreak. And Adrian. He was left with a stark choice: adapt to a world where his name carried a tarnished reputation, or continue his downward spiral. No job offers came his way. Even smaller startups were wary of a man whose pride had once overshadowed his judgment. He had become, in many eyes, a symbol of what not to do. Each time he saw a headline celebrating Olivia's success, it felt like a fresh cut. But with no money and no power, he lacked the means to fight back. All he could do was watch as the woman he once ridiculed ascended to heights he had only dreamed of. As Olivia continued reshaping steel tech innovations, she crossed paths with Daniel Carter, a respected figure in the tech world known for his breakthroughs in artificial intelligence. He had been developing a cutting-edge AI algorithm that could transform data processing across multiple industries. Impressed by Novateca's ethical approach and innovation, he reached out to propose a partnership. They first met in a glass-walled conference room at Novateca's headquarters. Daniel, tall and composed, carried himself with a quiet confidence. From the moment they shook hands, Olivia sensed a different energy. There was no hint of intimidation or condescension. Instead, Daniel listened intently to her ideas and offered thoughtful, collaborative feedback. In their subsequent meetings, they often found themselves lingering after the agenda was concluded, discussing shared interests. Daniel asked her about her experience building Novatech and expressed admiration for the resilience she displayed in the face of adversity. For her part, Olivia was drawn to his sincerity. He spoke passionately about creating AI that not only boosted profits but also contributed to social good. One late evening, as they wrapped up a particularly productive brainstorming session, Daniel hesitated before leaving the conference room. "I don't know if this is too forward," he said, adjusting his glasses nervously, "but would you like to grab dinner with me sometime? Strictly to talk. Well, maybe not just business." Olivia paused, a flicker of surprise and warmth lighting her features. In the aftermath of her toxic relationship with Adrian, she hadn't considered dating. Yet there was something genuine about Daniel. No game playing, no hidden agendas. "I'd like that," she replied softly, a small smile gracing her lips. Their relationship unfolded at a gentle pace, free of the turmoil that had characterized her past. Daniel respected her boundaries and valued her intelligence, never once trying to overshadow her. Before long, their partnership evolved into a romance that was built on mutual support and shared vision. For the first time in a long while, Olivia felt she could trust a man without sacrificing her own dreams. Adrian's situation grew increasingly dire. He was now living in a modest condo, a far cry from the opulence he once flaunted. Creditors called incessantly, demanding the repayment of loans he had taken out to sustain Steel Tech in its final days under his reign. Vanessa was long gone, having shacked up with a European real estate mogul. She had sent him a single text message: "It's been fun, but I need stability. Good luck." On a particularly dreary afternoon, Adrian scrolled through job postings that were well beneath his former pay grade. Dejection weighed him down like a stone. He couldn't believe he had fallen this far. In a desperate move, he decided to send Olivia another message, pleading for one last chance to talk. To his surprise, she agreed. Perhaps out of curiosity or pity, he wasn't sure. They met at a high-rise hotel lounge overlooking the city. Olivia arrived in a sharp, tailored blazer, an aura of unshakable composure about her. Adrian's appearance had deteriorated. His suit hung loosely, and stress lines marred his once handsome features. He waited until they were seated at a corner table before speaking in a subdued tone. "I've lost everything. I need you, Olivia. I can't find work, no one trusts me, and I don't have the capital to start over. If you could, maybe just put in a word." Olivia regarded him steadily. Gone was the ambitious mogul she had once worked alongside. In his place sat a broken man wrestling with the consequences of his own arrogance. She recalled the days of sleeping on a motel bed with hardly any money, her dreams crushed. Back then, he had shown her no mercy. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "but I can't help you. I have a new life, new responsibilities, and you left me to pick up the pieces when I was at my lowest. Do you really expect me to bail you out?" Adrian's lips quivered. I just thought, maybe for old times. She shook her head. I've moved on, Adrian. You should too. He bowed his head, tears stinging his eyes. For a moment, Olivia felt a pang of empathy. But empathy was not enough to erase what he had done. She stood up, signaling the end of their meeting, leaving Adrian alone once again in his despair. Olivia stepped out of the hotel lounge, heart pounding. Confronting Adrian stirred a maelstrom of memories, but she reminded herself that she was no longer the same person who had once pleaded for his attention. She found Daniel waiting in the car outside, offering a supportive smile. His presence reminded her of how far she had come. That night, as she stood on the balcony of her penthouse apartment, the city lights glittering below, Olivia contemplated the meeting with Adrian. She had seen in his eyes the regret he'd once refused to acknowledge. But she also knew she couldn't let sympathy sway her to compromise everything she had built. The next day, she sent Adrian a brief text. I wish you well, but I can't help you. Please don't contact me anymore. It was direct, final, and firm. She deleted his number afterward, an act symbolic of cutting the final thread that tied her to a past life marked by betrayal. Adrian, upon reading her message, felt a hollow pang of defeat. He stared at the screen, the blinking cursor mocking him as he contemplated replying. Ultimately, he typed nothing. The final goodbye had been spoken, and he had no illusions that Olivia would ever look back. By his own actions, he had lost her, this time for good. With Adrian definitively in her rearview mirror, Olivia poured her full energy into expanding Novatech and SteelTech innovations. Daniel introduced an AI project that combined big data analytics with machine learning algorithms, promising to revolutionize various industries from healthcare to finance. In a bold move, Olivia announced a joint venture between Novatech and SteelTech Innovations, Project Helios. The press release touted it as the next generation of AI technology, designed to democratize data analytics for businesses of all sizes. This new product aimed to eliminate the complexity of large-scale data models, making them accessible through user-friendly interfaces and affordable subscription tiers. Investors clamored to pour money into the venture. The stock prices for Novatech soared to unprecedented heights, elevating Olivia's net worth and solidifying her status as one of the most powerful leaders in tech. Analysts who once downplayed her potential were forced to eat their words, and she found herself featured in magazines like Forbes and Fortune. In each interview, Olivia graciously acknowledged her team's hard work and the collaborative spirit that propelled their success. She rarely mentioned Adrian, and when journalists pressed her for details about her personal life, she steered the conversation back to Project Helios and Novatech's future. Daniel stood by her side through every milestone. They celebrated the day they cracked a particularly complex AI algorithm with a quiet dinner, just the two of them in her penthouse, the city lights sparkling as they toasted to a new era. It was in these moments of genuine partnership that Olivia realized she had finally found the balance she once thought impossible. Love that respected her autonomy, and a career that respected her vision. As Project Helios prepared for its official launch, media outlets eagerly documented every development. Olivia was invited to appear on the cover of Forbes, an accolade she had quietly dreamed of since her college days. During the photo shoot, she wore a poised expression, her posture radiating a sense of hard-earned confidence. The headline read, "Meet Olivia Bennett, the visionary behind tech's brightest rise." On the day the magazine hit stands, Adrian wandered through a local bookstore, trying to distract himself from his stalled job search. He paused at a display of new issues and saw her face smiling back from the cover. Flashes of their past converged in his mind, her unwavering support when he was just starting SteelTech, her tears on the night he threw her out, and her triumphant surge to success without him. He picked up a copy, flipping to the article. Each paragraph extolled Olivia's journey and her role as a beacon for women in tech and entrepreneurship. There was no mention of Adrian's name, except for a passing reference to her previous marriage. The oversight stung, underscoring how irrelevant he had become in her story. Putting the magazine back, Adrian let out a shaky sigh. He knew he had only himself to blame. No revenge or cunning scheme would ever restore what he had lost. He trudged out of the store, feeling as though the world had moved on without him. For Olivia, the feature was not merely about fame. It was a form of closure, a public affirmation that she had made it on her own. She pinned a copy of the magazine cover to her office wall, right next to her first Novatech press release. It was a reminder of how even the most devastating betrayals could be transformed into motivation to reach unimaginable heights. Under Olivia's and Daniel's guidance, Project Helios launched to record-breaking sales. The software rapidly gained global traction, attracting clients from every continent. Meanwhile, Steel Tech Innovations became synonymous with reliable, future-focused tech solutions, a far cry from the hollow brand it had once been. Olivia found herself at the pinnacle of her career. Yet, ironically, she felt more grounded than ever. She balanced board meetings with philanthropic efforts, funding scholarships for underprivileged students who dreamed of pursuing careers in STEM fields. She implemented generous maternity and paternity leave policies across all divisions, determined to foster a workplace culture that valued its people. In the midst of this whirlwind, Daniel proposed to her in a private setting, presenting a simple but heartfelt gesture, a ring passed down through his family. Olivia accepted, tears of joy filling her eyes. This was a marriage built on trust and partnership, not ambition and pretense. On a quiet evening, after another triumphant day at the office, Olivia returned home and stepped out onto her penthouse balcony. The city skyline spread out like a sea of lights below her. She sipped her tea, letting the warm breeze brush against her cheeks. The ghost of her past, Adrian's betrayal, the nights of despair, the cramped apartment, had finally lost its power. Resting her hand on the railing, she whispered words she'd been waiting to say for years. I won. Not just against Adrian, but against doubt, heartbreak, and the forces that once silenced her. She had built an empire from the ashes, and in doing so, discovered her own strength. And so began the new chapter of Olivia Bennett's life, full of promise, guided by wisdom, and unshackled from the betrayals of her past. The world watched in awe, but for Olivia, the sweetest victory was the quiet realization that she was finally, truly free. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please go ahead and generously hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating tales like this. We'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.